All right, so welcome to the 2022 Stratford and District Chamber of Commerce Provincial Debate. My name is Travis Blum. I'm past chair for the board, the chair of the Government and Civic Affairs Committee, and a business owner here in Stratford as a financial planner and division director with IG Wealth Management. The Chamber of Commerce has had a presence in this community since 1860. It's our mission to be the prominent business organization and to be the voice of business by championing economic prosperity and an exceptional quality of life. In keeping with our history and objective to promote good government and sound legislation at all levels of government, the Chamber is proud to host the All-Candidates Debate for the provincial election held on this Thursday, June 2nd, 2022. I'd like to take a moment now to introduce and thank our candidates for joining us this evening. It is not an easy deed to run for political office, and you've all shown up here this evening willing to do your part and speak your piece, so we thank you for joining us. In no particular order, we have Matthew Ray of the PC Party, Jo-Dee Burbach of the NDP Party, Ashley Fox of the Liberal Party, Laura Busutti of the Green Party, Sandy MacGregor of the Ontario Party, Bob Hosken from the New Blue Party, and Robert Smink from the Freedom Party of Ontario. I'd like to thank all of our sponsors this evening. Sponsorship is a part of what allows the Chamber to continue to contribute and to serve the business community in Stratford, St. Mary's, and Mitchell, especially through the current economic and geopolitical environment we are all facing right now. Thanks go out to Vancia Financial. Mike has joined us this evening, and Aura Insurance, and thank you to Jeff, who are our official timekeepers this evening. We've got the Huron-Perth Association of Realtors, who are our official timekeepers this evening. You did a great job in St. Mary's, so we thank you and welcome you back again this evening. Fahm & Company have graciously sponsored the venue for this evening. We've partnered with Saba, who is our live streaming partner. They've made it possible for us to broadcast what is sure to be a lively debate this evening across Facebook and YouTube. And we do have Rogers here as well, recording the event to be replayed at a later date. Our goal this evening is to focus candidates on issues that are important to the community. We want to inform voters and promote transparency and accountability among elected officials. We will be taking written questions from the audience this evening, as well as submissions from our live stream viewers online. With all of that said, we do reserve the right as an organization to review the questions for brevity. Keeping that in mind, if we do run out of time to ask your question, our candidates this evening will be available for a one-on-one discussion after the formal debate has concluded. So please stick around if you desire. Questions can be submitted to myself, Dana here, Shannon is back there. We've got Ava over here, and then Greg on that side of the room waving at you over there. So lots of runners. Just keep your eye out for one of us this evening. We'll come to your seat and grab your question for you. At this point in time, I'd like to introduce our General Manager of the Chamber, Eddie Matthews, who will be the debate MC for this evening. Eddie is a well-known and trusted voice in our community, and we're confident in his ability to once again run this debate in a way that is fair and respectful to all of our candidates and parties. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Eddie Matthews.
Thank you. You can probably hear me a bit better because I'm a little bit lower to the microphone in that. I'm not worried about what the candidates are going to say. I'm more worried about the sign lasting this evening, so hopefully we'll have that. Welcome. Thank you all for being here tonight, ladies and gentlemen, and to our candidates. This has been I guess we're in the home stretch now. June 2nd, we'll be voting for our local members of provincial parliament, and the results will determine which party will govern Ontario, and hopefully we'll get some details tonight about how the province will get us moving forward from the crisis that has affected pretty much every one of us in this room as we cast our ballot soon. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight and submitting your questions. Tonight we're going to be hearing from our candidates about healthcare, cost of living, the economy, jobs, housing, transportation. With all that on the table, I applaud all of our candidates who want to make a difference, representing this riding. We have a number of questions that we're going to be getting to, so please flag down one of our runners. But right now I'd like to introduce the candidates, let them introduce themselves. Each candidate will have 3 minutes for their opening statements, and we'll do it alphabetically by first name. And Ashley Fox from the Liberals.
Thank you very much. My name is Ashley Fox, and I am the Ontario Liberal candidate for Perth-Wellington. I am a registered practical nurse with certifications in advanced foot care and gerontology. I grew up in Harriston, Ontario, and currently reside in Palmerston, Ontario with my husband, and we will be expecting our first child a little bit later this year. I presently work as a home care nurse and a nurse case manager with Promise Home Care in Kitchener-Waterloo, and I facilitate a senior living course with Conestoga College. And my experience in nursing is primarily in senior care, including a background in hospital, addiction care, retirement homes, and long-term care. During the pandemic, I volunteered my time with the Region of Waterloo Public Health Unit to assist with COVID-19 vaccinations for our retirement communities and our long-term care homes. My experience in governance comes from being a 2-term College of Nurses board member, as well as a 2-term RPN vice president. When my term ended, I was approached to serve as a nurse advisor with the Canadian PSW Network, an association focusing on supporting personal support workers across Canada. Last year, when I was considering running for office, I realized I already make a difference for my patients. Why not make a difference for my community as a whole? The desire has fueled my decision to run and make things better. I want everyone in Perth-Wellington to feel like they're being respected and have an MPP who will listen and respond to the people that they represent. There are so many issues that are important to me in this provincial election, focusing on revolutionizing healthcare and senior care, strengthening and investing in our public education system, support for small local businesses, tackling affordability, transportation, and continuing to stand up for the rights of women, our LGBTQ community, and minorities. I want to be clear that the rights of all women include reproductive human healthcare rights. We need a representation in government that acknowledges that our rural riding is unique. Yes, we face challenges, but we also have many strengths as a result of our diverse economy, including the arts, culture, agricultural, manufacturing, construction, and tourism, and we need to recognize the significant contribution that we make to Ontario. It's an honor to be here tonight, and I humbly ask for your support on June 2nd. Thank you.
Ashley. From the New Blue, Bob Hoskins, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, good evening, everyone. Excuse me. There, I think I fixed it. There it is. My name is Bob Hosken, and I'm representing the New Blue Party for the candidacy for Perth-Wellington. New Blue Party is a grassroots party. It's a conservative party, and a new type of conservative party that we haven't been used to seeing in the last definitely 4 years. We want to support small business. We don't want to support big corporations. We want to see things change in this province in terms of the decision-making that we're doing, right? Talking to stakeholders in the different industries is the way to go to come up with the best solutions possible. What we see now is decisions being made out of an inner circle in Doug Ford's office. An inner circle that includes lobbyists. You know, his strategy or his campaign strategists are both lobbyists in the campaign off-season. We can't have that happening in our province. We have to be doing what's best for the people of this province. I want to be the representative of the people, and I'm so glad so many of you showed up tonight so I can discuss with you my ideas or our New Blue ideas to how we make this riding a better place for the people, not for the big corporations, not for the big money. What you're going to hear from these establishment parties tonight is a lot of money spending. We're going to spend money on this, we're going to spend money on that. Well, where are they getting the money from? Well, it's from us, our taxpayer dollars. And it's a lot of money that they're talking about. And I'm not really sure how they're going to pay for all this because we're in a deficit spending situation as it is. So where are they finding this money from? Well, it's from your pockets. You're going to be taxed even more than you are right now. And that's the only way they're going to be able to pay for the promises that they're making. Billions and billions of dollars to back up their corporate buddies, building windmills that are completely economically useless, building or helping big corporation car companies build EV batteries that are not good for the environment, let me tell you. So we need a change in this province. I think New Blue is the party that is going to provide that change. We have some strong candidates. We have 124 candidates running in every riding in this province. One of the first times that's ever happened with a grassroots party. We are a movement. We're not just a party. Thank you.
Bob. Next from the NDP, Jo-Dee Burbach. You've got 3 minutes, Jo-Dee.
Thank you, Eddie. Am I on? Can you hear me? Not very well. No. Hi. Hello, hello? Is it on yet? Yep. Yeah, is that better? No? I could just talk really loud, maybe. Is that okay? I point that? Yeah, try that. Is that better? No? Okay. Just tell me when I can go.
Getting feedback. See
Hello? Hello? Testing, testing? Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks very much to the Stratford District Chamber of Commerce for hosting tonight, and thanks to everyone who's joining us here this evening. My name is Jo-Dee Burbach, and I'm your Ontario NDP candidate for Perth-Wellington. I've lived here in Stratford since 1999. I moved to this area because I thought it was a great place to raise my 3 children, and I was right. Stratford is an amazing city surrounded by a vibrant agricultural community. It's the best of both worlds. I've been a small business owner for more than 25 years, and I have a master's degree in communication studies. Since 2018, I've been a city councillor here in Stratford. I've also served as a board member for many local organizations, including Cycle Stratford, Foundation for Education, and Here for Now Theatre. I'm a strong supporter of the arts, small business, active transportation, and environmental stewardship. I've been asked many times recently why I'm running to be your provincial representative, and the answer is simple. I love this city, I love this region and this province, and I'm ready to work hard to make it a better place for all of us to live. As a city councillor, I've seen firsthand the challenges that local families are facing, especially when it comes to finding a home they can afford. Home prices and rents are the highest they've ever been, and with the increases in the cost of food and gas, affordability has emerged as the biggest issue in this election. We need a plan to make life more affordable for all. As a parent and a friend, I've seen the strain that the pandemic has placed on our mental health. Whether we are students, teachers, nurses, PSWs, or small business owners, the toll has been huge. We need to invest in mental health care that's accessible and available for everyone. As an environmentalist, I've been working hard to address climate change at the municipal level, and I am frustrated by the complete lack of action by the Ford government. Anyone who claims that building a highway will help address climate change clearly does not take it seriously. I understand that the issues that we're facing locally and the NDP is exactly what we need right now. Our priorities are to invest in affordable housing, healthcare, long-term care, and education. And we plan to do these things using a climate lens. We will put people and the planet before profit. Thank you.
Thanks, Jo-Dee. We'll get to, are we able to fix Jo-Dee's mic, just so we're not sharing? Thanks for looking into that. Next up, Laura Busutti from the Green Party. You've got 3 minutes. Laura?
Can everyone hear me? No? Is it off? Is that why?
You got a switch there. Is the switch on?
The switch doesn't seem to be a switch per se.
Oh, mine's on now.
Hello?
Might have to swing yours over here.
I didn't want to touch anything and ruin it.
Mine's fixed now. Yeah, this is on now.
So this is where, okay. Hi, I'm Laura Busutti, candidate for the Ontario Green Party. I'm originally from Mount Hope, a rural area south of Hamilton, but I moved to Stratford in 1988, so I've lived in this area a long time. I worked in the automotive sector in R&D and quality, but I am presently a trustee for the Avon-Maitland District School Board. My husband and I have 3 children, grown. Our youngest is still in high school. And so I'm at a point in life where I can start to relax and enjoy some freedom. But I am concerned with the present circumstances in our province. In a province as rich as ours, we should not have people that are working full-time but not able to find an affordable place to call home. We should not have people stressed and anxious about whether they can afford food. We should not see patients lingering in hospital corridors waiting for care. We can do better. We can invest in our communities. We need to be climate leaders for a future that's already here. It's time for new solutions to Ontario's old problems. The Ontario Greens platform lays out a vision for the Ontario we all want and will deliver it with the leadership we need. This will be achieved by investing in a caring society, connecting communities, and building a new climate economy. The Green Plan includes 6 priorities: homes, not highways, invest in affordable homes instead of the climate disaster of Highway 413, mental health is health, include mental health care under OHIP, the new climate economy, invest in a green economy and energy retrofits to help conserve energy and save money. 4, respect for people, pay people a living wage. 5, reinvest in health and education. And 6, protect nature permanently. Permanently protect farmland, wetlands, and conserve 30% of nature by 2030. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Matthew Ray from the PC Party, you've got 3 minutes.
Good evening. Is this on? Yes. Okay, great. 3rd time's the charm. Good evening, everyone, and thank you to Eddie Matthews for hosting, and also to the Chamber for organizing, and all the volunteers to make this happen this evening. It really takes a team to make this all to come together, and thank you all for coming as well. It's great to see a large crowd out. My name is Matthew Ray, and I'm your Progressive Conservative candidate. I'm originally from Harriston, where I grew up on my parents' dairy farm. I'm a first-time homeowner in Mitchell, and I understand the challenges our young people are facing to get into the market. For the past couple of years, I've sat on the Perth County Committee for Attainable and Affordable Housing. I'm a graduate of the University of Guelph and the Diplomatic Academy of Vienna. I've worked in both the House of Commons and the Legislative Assembly of Ontario, and I currently work for an education company. Perth-Wellington deserves an MPP who understands our values and cares about our communities. A re-elected Progressive Conservative government under the leadership of Premier Doug Ford will continue to get things done for Perth-Wellington. We're saying yes to a plan for jobs, economic growth, and opportunity for all. We reduced the small business corporate income tax rate. We introduced the jobs training tax credit. And under our Progressive Conservative government, the WSIB is providing a rebate of $1.5 billion in surplus funds to safe employers this year. We're saying yes to increasing rural healthcare funding, increasing long-term care beds, more houses, and expanding rural broadband. Having worked at Queen's Park before, I understand what the day-to-day life of an MPP looks like. I'll be ready on day 1 to advocate for you and our families in Toronto. Our progressive government will rebuild Ontario's economy, continue working for workers, continuing building highways and key infrastructure, continue to keep costs down, and implement a plan to stay open. I look forward to the questions and the discussion this evening. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Matthew. Robby Smink from the Freedom Party.
Hello.
You've got 3 minutes.
Hello? Okay, great. Listen, thanks for coming out and standing up for Canada. I'd invite you to visit the Freedom Party website at freedomparty.org. Our platform is made up of the basic principles of truth, rights, justice, and freedom. You know, listening to the other candidates here, it just seems like, oh, this is just business as normal. Like, what about the last 2.5 years? I don't recognize my own country anymore. Canada has become a fascist, and Ontario, a fascist dictatorship, a police state, and there's plans for lots more. In Doug Ford's upcoming budget, he has $6.9 billion earmarked for the next COVID pandemic, what they want to spend next year on, you know, COVID suppression or whatever, however you want to call it. You know, all these candidates here, only one of us is going to get elected. So 90% of what you're going to hear tonight doesn't mean a hill of beans. You know, we're let me start like this. I'd like to talk about and hold the Ford government responsible and held accountable for the last 2 years. He's suspended Parliament almost for 2 years. He wanted the police to actually have the powers to stop, seize, and search people for COVID violations. Where's your papers, police state? And if it wasn't for the Ontario Provincial Police and all the other police forces that stood up and said, no, we're not going to enforce that. We're not going to turn Canada into another Australia. If it wasn't for them, we'd be suffering under that kind of dictatorship. Ford kicks people out of caucus who don't agree with him, who don't toe the party line, like Roman Barber and Randy Hillier. And, you know, I don't have this confirmed, but Ford's daughter said their whole family isn't vaxxed. So, and that includes Ford's. So I'd like to talk about face diapers tonight. I'd like to talk about vaccine mandates and passports and windmills and how they are a total waste of money. And I'd like to talk about the price of gas. And I'd like to talk about how government has put 3 million Canadians out of jobs. And I'd like to talk about how 30 churches were burned down this year. Did you hear anything about it? Not too much. I'd like to talk about the lockdowns, not just business as usual, let the government fix this problem, fix that problem. The government isn't the solution. The government is the problem. How long will it take before people wake up to that fact? There's 3 million Canadians can't pay their rent or their mortgages because of these COVID policies, and they got to be held accountable. Thank you.
And last, Sandy MacGregor, representing the Ontario Party. You've got 3 minutes, Sandy.
Hello. Am I on? Yes, I am. Hello, my name is Sandy MacGregor, and it's Sandy William MacGregor, by the way. I grew up in Kitchener, Ontario, but we recently moved to Mount Forest, and we have lived there for the last 9 years and now call it home. My wife, Heidi MacGregor, and I have been married for 45 years. She has been and still is my greatest inspiration and best friend. Together we have 2 children and 4 grandchildren. My career has focused primarily with children and youth. I have worked in child and youth services for most of my life, in group homes, a detention center, and for the past 21 years in a high school. We, as the Ontario Party, believe in freedom of conscience, freedom of worship, and religion, freedom of speech, freedom of education, freedom of association and assembly. We believe good governance necessitates an acknowledgement of universal truths that apply to all people regardless of their religious background. We recognize the family as the fundamental institution of a healthy, functional society and the best place for the formation of healthy, responsible citizens. We believe in the right to life, from the beginning of conception to the last rights and dignity of all citizens, regardless of health, disability, or age. The Ontario Party is committed to creating an unprecedented level of openness in government. We believe in limited government and the indispensable role those autonomous institutions play in maintaining those limits by balancing the power of size and state. We believe in balanced budgets to be the most responsible fiscal policy. We affirm that a surplus budget is over-taxation. We understand that you need to know how and why a decision is made in government. My name is Sandy MacGregor, and I represent the Ontario Party in Perth-Wellington. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. And thank you, candidates. This section now, we're going to start at your end, Sandy. And folks, also, if you've got questions, specific questions for a certain candidate, please, you can ask them. I know some of the questions are kind of generalized, but if you've got a question for a specific candidate, please make sure you ask and give that to the runners when they come by. We're going to start with Sandy. What we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen and candidates, Sandy, you'll get 1 minute to respond. Robby will get a chance to respond after you for 1 minute, and then we'll open it up for a 3-minute debate for everybody else. And we're going to start with housing. Housing and the cost of housing in Stratford and area, how we can assist with not only the cost of housing, but the effect that housing has had on the rental market. How would the Ontario Party handle things, Sandy?
Well, as you know, Ford's government prevents construction of family dwellings that are not single-family homes. Duplexes and fourplexes are forbidden where they are most needed, both for ownership and for renting. We're going to introduce sweeping ban of urban planning to reform and adjust single-family zoning in Ontario's most housing-deprived cities. In particular, party and property owners will be given more freedom to construct 2- and 4-unit residential buildings amidst neighborhoods traditionally reserved for single-family homes. Establish an Ontario-focused foreign purchasing ban on residential homes, and team up with young buyers and senior home owners. This is kind of an idea of mine, to team up with baby boomers and young people to get them into homes together and work out a plan that they can own a home together eventually.
Robby, from the Freedom Party, you've got 1 minute to respond.
Well, here's another typical example of how, because of the government involved, there's more problems than there are solutions. And part of the housing problem is that the government is printing money that it doesn't have out of thin air, and it's driving up inflation to the point where people can't even afford groceries now sometimes. So the borrowing of the money has to stop. And then there's, like Sandy said, the zoning regulations. But you know, none of that's going to matter unless we address what's going on in our skies. The chemtrails that they're spraying every single day, normally in the morning and then in the evening, but yesterday over St. Mary's, it was all day. Yeah, and you can tell what they are because they don't dissipate in 10 to 20 seconds. These white streaks in the sky, they won't dissipate for 30, 40 minutes. And what's up there is metal nanoparticles of aluminum, barium,
Robby,
strontium,
we're out of time
magnesium.
for that, and we're talking about housing as well, so we'll open it up for debate. Jo-Dee, it looks like you wanted to say something.
Yes, I don't know much about chemtrails, but I do know a thing or two about zoning. And it's really important that all levels of government work together, municipal, provincial, and federal. Provincial can't solve it on their own, but definitely can play a huge part in things like zoning. So right now we have zoning laws that are different in each municipality, but they tend to be exclusionary, meaning that we're restricting the type of housing that can be built. So the NDP would like to move towards more inclusionary zoning so that we can get different types of housing. Not everybody needs to have a single family home out in the suburbs. We need what's called the missing middle, and we need to build that up. Townhouses, duplexes, low-rise apartment buildings, and we also need to work with developers to be able to bring those projects forward.
And I think Matthew Ray wanted to respond to that.
Sure, thank you, Eddie. It's a great question. It's one of the top things I hear at the door around affordability and housing affordability. In 2019, our PC government tabled a bill called More Homes, More Choice, and so this allows exempts additional residential units on a property, like a granny suite, for example. It allows the municipality to defer or remove those development charges if it chooses to do so to encourage that development. And they can also apply this to rental units and nonprofit units as well for the developers and builders. And also, I just want to highlight a project locally. The provincial government committed $3.9 million to the Britannia Street project, which is a community housing project. And across the province, we've are committing $1.2 billion to the Social Services Relief Fund. So that's community housing.
Okay. And Laura, how would the Greens handle this?
I agree with everyone in more inclusionary zoning, and of course allowing more duplexes, triplexes to be made as of a right, so that we can increase density. But how about we also put in a just trying to find it here, a tax, a 20% tax on people who buy multiple houses. So on their third house, they would get 20%, and then the next house would be even more. And that way we don't have corporations and wealthy individuals scooping up all the houses and then parking cash there.
We've got about a minute left, and I want to get to this end of the table. So why don't we, Ashley, and then Bob, we'll get to you after that.
Thank you very much. Municipalities know where the best spots municipalities are for building and development. So we would bring back their voice to the table and work with them directly on where building and zoning needs to be. And we would also provide incentives, because we know that if we meet KPIs or growth targets, that often the development will help with that.
Yeah. And Bob?
Well, I'll take a different line on it. I think a lot of it, and I'm going to go with, to agree a little bit with Robby, a lot of it has to do with holding down interest rates for the last 10 years. What we've done, and essentially with this deficit spending and money printing out of thin air, that's what causes inflation, right? High prices are just a symptom of inflation. Inflation is money printing. So if you're deficit spending and you're printing money out of thin air, I always ask, look for the people who you are not allowed to criticize. And who are we not allowed to criticize? We're not allowed to criticize the Bank of Canada. Pierre Poilievre found that out pretty quickly in the last couple of weeks. But I think we should be critical of the central bank for lowering interest rates and keeping them so low for so long. What's it done? It's provided people no savings accounts because there was no interest rates to save your money in the banks.
Okay, well, hold that thought, because
right,
I want to
thank you.
continue on with the housing and the real estate situation, and we'll throw this to Robby, and Matthew, you'll have a minute to respond. From Robby, we have an entire generation that's currently priced out of the real estate market now. This directly impacts our community and keeping people here. Young, hardworking people have been moving away just because of the cost, not only here but around the area. What would be your plan to enable long-term, sustainable affordability? Robby, you've got 1 minute.
Well, it doesn't matter what my plan is, because I'm not going to get elected anyway. I'm only going to get 2% of the vote, as is everybody else here except the winner. So, to be talking about plans that you're going to implement when you have not a chance, why don't we talk about what's really happening in our world? The price of gas, vaccine mandates and passports, why isn't government being held accountable for closing schools? Where's the science between business closures and quarantines and face diapers and social distancing? Where's the science between contact tracing and restricting public gatherings and keeping seniors in isolation in long-term people's homes? Those are the issues that we should be dealing with here, not what's one government program you're going to spend. And listen, every time you hear somebody up here talk about investment or a rebate or $1 billion here, $1 billion there, they're just talking about increasing your taxes by that much.
Okay. Well, you're going to love the rest of the questions then for the night. Matthew, you've got a minute to respond.
Thank you for the question. It's a very important question. And so our government committed in Budget 2022 to, for the next 4 years of a 4-year mandate. Every year we would work with our municipal partners on the housing supply strategy. So it's great to see a provincial government working in tandem with our municipal partners. As some of my other colleagues have mentioned, the municipalities know what's best. What works in downtown Toronto will definitely not work in downtown Stratford, downtown Mitchell, or downtown Listowel. So we need to work with our municipal partners moving forward, and our government is committed to do that in Budget 2022. Thank you.
Okay. Ashley, we'll throw that to you.
So our focus would be on the first-time home buyers. We know that that's a very difficult time for them right now, so $1.5 million in 10 years. and we would create an Ontario Housing Corporation which would finance and develop that.
Okay. Bob, how would you handle this problem?
Well, again, throwing money at the problem is not going to fix the affordability problem. It's actually going to worsen it. So I'm not really sure why they're talking about throwing money at programs where young savers can save more money. Well, how is that going to fix the house prices? It's actually going to compound the problem and make house prices even more expensive. And when private corporations or private companies or private small businesses or home builders get involved with the government, is it actually going to lower the prices of housing? I would think that's going to be the opposite effect when the
let's
government
check
gets
with the
involved.
NDP. Jo-Dee Burbach, and then Laura will come to you.
Yeah, we're looking at a few different approaches. One is to give direct financial support to first-time home buyers and renters, but that would come in the form of interest-free loans. The other important thing to do is to create a strategy, and we know that the PC government has actually got rid of the Minister of Housing, so we would bring back a Minister of Housing that is specifically looking at housing, and we have a plan to create at least 250,000 affordable and non-market rental homes over the next 10 years.
Okay.
But we do need a plan to coordinate that.
Yeah. Laura?
The scarcity of homes, because a lot of the affordable homes that are around now and rental buildings were built, pre-2000. So we have to start getting into that business again, because private builders are not going to build affordable housing. So we will have to throw money and build over 10 years at least 182,000 new permanently affordable community housing rental homes, and including the 60,000 homes that have wraparound supports for people with needs.
Okay. And Sandy MacGregor, we'll wrap it up with you. What is your plan to enable long-term sustainable housing affordability?
Thank you. Well, we obviously need sustainable housing. I visited many homes when I was going door to door, and there's people that are living 2 and 3 people in one apartment, and we definitely need affordable housing. But there's no mistake made that governments are overspending, and the reason we are in an inflation period because governments keep overspending and overspending. We as the Ontario Party want to have fiscal responsibility. If you have excess budget money, then you are over-taxation. We need to bring the taxes down so people can afford to live again.
Okay. Thanks, Andy. We're going to stick with housing. This one will be directed to Matthew, and Laura, you'll get a minute to respond after Matthew's done. Housing supply issues have a significant impact on long-term housing affordability. What can your party do to help with the supply of housing? And if elected, is your government willing to work with the federal and municipal governments to address affordability? Matthew, you've got 1 minute.
Thank you, Eddie. It's a great question again. And yes, the provincial government will work with the federal, a re-elected PC government, will work with the federal government and municipal governments. As I mentioned in my previous answer, in a 4-year mandate, we'd have a plan each year with our municipal partners and the feds if they want to join the table there. We have a good record of getting deals done both in the auto sector and childcare with the federal government under Premier Ford and his ministers. We also we are committing to as well the 1.5 million new homes over 10 years, and we'll do that through development charges, rebates or deferrals, as I mentioned earlier, and also cutting red tape where we can do so effectively.
Okay. Laura Busutti, you've got a minute to respond.
Is this working?
Yep.
Okay. Partner with nonprofits, co-ops to use public land. So we'll work with federal and municipal governments to make sure we free up public land within cities, so we're not eating up farmland for permanently affordable rental housing, or home ownership options. And then let's develop and support alternative home ownership programs such as co-housing, tiny homes, rent to own, and allow single-family dwellings to be divided. And then reinstate rental controls.
Yeah. Well, let's throw it at Jo-Dee, because you've seen the municipal side of it.
I have,
If
actually.
elected, what can you see the NDP helping out with?
Well, there's one thing in particular. Affordable housing has been on our radar for several years, actually. And in the past year and a half, the city of Stratford created a supportive housing project with 12 units that would be created, and we have the land available, and we applied for a rapid housing funding for it. We've applied twice, and we've been denied. So Municipalities have the answers. We just need a provincial government that will support those projects. And we basically saw all of that rapid housing money that was available go to the GTA and not to the smaller municipalities. Okay. So we need to have somebody who's going to fight for that money to come out of Toronto and come out to these smaller areas.
Okay, we've still got a couple of minutes left in here. Bob or Ashley? Bob?
Sure, I'll take it. Again, when we talk about affordability of housing, we have to look at it more big picture. And the big picture is not the provincial government. The big picture is beyond that. We're talking about central banks around the world holding down interest rates, printing money out of thin air, and causing inflation. When you have more money chasing the same amount of goods, that's going to raise prices.
Okay. Okay. Ashley, I know you wanted to mention.
Thank you. I actually wanted to address the comment previously in regards to working to the federal and municipal levels. Had that been done at this point, we would be a little bit more productive, Eddie.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We'll take it to the other end. Sandy, any response to this about housing affordability? No? Kate and Robby?
Hello?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Here again is, you're asking the government to fix the problems that they themselves created. It's like putting the fox in charge of the hen house. The government is not the solution. We can't keep running to the government every time somebody's hard done by, they need this, they need that. Because government solutions cause more problems than they solve. The answer for Ontario is smaller and less government, not more.
Okay, thank you for that. This one will be directed over to Laura, and then Jo-Dee, you get a minute to respond. How do you intend to support first-time home buyers across the country, and especially across this area too, across this county, that are struggling to find housing that meets their needs? This is one thing that we've seen not only around here, but it's nationwide, isn't it? Laura, you've got a minute.
Yes, well, so we have to make sure that workers are being paid a fair wage so that they can afford rent and afford the life in general. And then, of course, we're going to have to build affordable housing. Like I said, a lot of the affordable housing was built pre-2000. We have to either fix these buildings or make new ones. So that's why I say we have to provide nonprofit housing providers the support and capital to purchase rental buildings and to maintain affordability in perpetuity. Thank you.
It's a $5 word right there. Jo-Dee, you've got a minute to respond, and then we'll open it up for debate.
Thank you for the question. We definitely need to support first-time home buyers and renters directly, but we also need to support municipalities and make sure that we are able to build especially purpose-built rentals. There's a lot to consider, including zoning, but even in our official plan. So Stratford's going to be doing an official plan review in the upcoming year, and we need to look at our densities and where we are going to allow the units, because we don't have enough rental units. So if there aren't not enough units, then obviously people aren't going to be able to find a place to live. So especially within urban boundaries, we need to be looking at those official plans and looking at making complete communities where people can afford to live and also get to public transportation, be able to walk places, and live an environmentally sound life as well.
Is there a difference between affordable and attainable housing?
Stratford has an official difference between attainable and affordable. So attainable means that a person is able to purchase or buy it. Okay. Affordable, I think, is based on an actual percentage of your income, and that's more of a provincial definition.
Good to know. Just wanted to ask. We'll open it up for debate. If anybody wants to jump in on this, we'll open it up. Bob?
Well, I'm not sure how a program for young buyers, allowing them to save more money, tax-free, is going to help the affordability of a house. It's just not. It's common sense. It works against itself. The prices are just going to stay high. And we really need to talk about wages. Wages haven't kept up with inflation whatsoever. Why is that? Well, we're not really that productive in this province because of our electricity prices. We've lost manufacturing jobs, and it's hurting not only our manufacturing, it's hurting our agriculture. So fixing the productivity by reducing electricity rates, reducing the HST from 13% down to 10% is one of our new blue plans. And that puts more money in people's pockets and helps them in these times of high prices.
Thanks, Bob. Ashley, we'll jump to you and then Matthew.
Sorry. So again, similar to my colleagues, zoning and mixed development, but I'm actually going to echo my colleague to my left of me here. We also need to look at the regional living wage. We know that no wage is equal across the province.
Okay. Matthew.
Yes, that's a great question, and it's been a lot of talk about wages and attracting good jobs. So we're committed to investing $1 billion if re-elected in our skills and retraining and uptraining for employees so they can get those good jobs that are out there. Every employer, I think, right now in the riding, we have one of the lowest unemployment rates in the country, is looking for workers, and so we're committing money to for people to upskill their skills, and so they can get those good jobs and afford a higher income and potentially a higher house.
Okay. Robby, you wanted to jump in?
Hello?
Yep.
Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. I'm just impressed as to how easily Matthew here just spends the billion. You know, oh, we're going to spend $1 billion here and $1 billion there. You know, so that's $1 billion in extra taxes. Now, I grew up in the 50s and 60s, and for 400 years, there was never a housing shortage in this country when the free market was looking after the housing. As soon as the governments in the 70s brought in rent controls, that's when all these problems started. And in order to fix them, you wanted more government programs, and then you get more problems. Another thing we have to do is we have to stop the illegal immigration that's going on in this country, bringing in people and having open borders in Roxham Road and letting thousands and tens of thousands of people come across. Where are they going to live when we don't even have affordable housing for our own Canadian citizens?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that. We're at the end of this one, so we've just got a few more housing questions that have come in. This one for Jo-Dee, and then Bob can respond to it. You'll each have a minute. The recent passing of Bill 109, More Homes for Everyone Act, is an effort to increase housing supply with the thought of ultimately increasing housing affordability. What metrics will be used to evaluate the positive or the negative impacts of that bill? And I don't know if you're familiar with that at all?
I'm familiar with that bill, yes. We actually talked about it at the last council meeting I went to because municipal councillors and municipalities are not very happy with it. Bill 109 will allow the provincial government to make zoning and sprawl decisions for municipalities without having to consult them. So they will be able to tell a municipality where the developments will happen, and it will jump over consultations at the municipal level, which is a problem. The other thing that is problematic for our staff is that development charges will be rebated to developers if we don't get their proposals through in time. And for smaller municipalities like Stratford and especially the smaller municipalities in this region, we don't have the staff to push through those development proposals so quickly. So we are going to be working for free, and we're all going to be paying for that with our municipal property taxes.
Okay. Does it propose the change to the land use for the planning of it? Does that make sense?
Yes, it gives the province the land use planning. It takes it out of the hands of the municipalities.
Yeah, okay. Bob, I don't know if you wanted to respond to that at all?
I'm not really
Okay.
that up to date on Bill 109, but
not a problem with that. We'll open it up for debate if anybody wants to respond. Laura?
Yeah, we have to start championing smart growth and freeze the urban boundaries, and that way we can ensure that the growth happens on available land, which is within a lot of our cities that's owned by the province and the federal government. So any new bills should respect municipalities' decisions on how to grow.
Okay. Matthew?
Yes, thank you for the question. It's an important question. So More Homes for Everyone is the name of the bill. Aim of it is to reduce red tape and get more homes built. It also is to protect and build community housing, which is very important as well, because there is a spectrum, a community spectrum or continuum. And also the bill I referred to earlier, which was More Homes, More Choice. We saw the largest number of housing starts in 2021. It was 100,000 housing starts and 13,000 rental starts as well. So it's great to see some of these initiatives move forward, and we'll continue to work with our municipal partners, as I mentioned previously. The budget committed to doing that every year of a 4-year mandate.
Yeah.
What was the
Okay.
average cost of these houses started?
I don't know if you'd even know that.
I do not know that.
No.
Maybe the Huron Realtors do release statistics.
600,000, 700,000?
Okay. Robby?
Yeah, well, I'd like to address the fact that all these costs are being imposed on us by this CO2 hoax, this carbon tax, which is raising the price of everything. Housing, fuel, food, everything we do is affected. And, you know, carbon makes up 0.04% of the atmosphere, 0.04. It's a requirement of every living thing on the planet, plant, animal, and people. And so actually to tax something that is an essential part of our existence is not only asinine, but it's just another tax grab of, you know, they've taxed everything else in our life, so now they're taxing the air we breathe. I mean, does it get any more insane than this?
Sandy, did you want to get in the last?
It just goes back to, this isn't on me. My father-in-law was a builder, and it all comes down to the price of building supplies. We keep adding on more taxes and more taxes. Building supplies go up. They have to pass it on to the consumer. So we need to lower taxes. That's a simple thing. Governments spend too much money.
Okay. Jo-Dee, you wanted to get in?
Just in response to Mr. Ray's point about red tape, I don't believe that environmental regulations are red tape. I don't believe that protecting our zoning and our municipal boundaries is red tape.
Okay.
That's actually protecting
Yep.
us.
We're going to talk about municipal support in just a moment. This one is for Bob, and Ashley can respond to this, and then we'll open up to everybody, because everybody is involved in this one, because all candidates on the stage here are new to the provincial legislature. What experience do you hope to bring to the legislature that encourages good government? Bob, you've got 1 minute.
Well, I plan on answering questions in question period. How about that?
Okay.
We haven't seen much of that in the last 2 years, if at all. Our only MPP in Queen's Park, Belinda Karahalios, seems to be the only opposition to any of these establishment parties. All the establishment parties seem to agree on most things for everything. We're talking about Bill 67, which was bringing CRT and LGBTQ conversations into our public schools. The PCs voted in favor of that. I'm not sure why. You know, they're constantly agreeing with each other in the House of the Queen's Park. Sorry, not the House of Commons. There too, though. But we need to change. We need an opposition voice and somebody to ask the question and change the narrative.
Okay. Ashley, to respond to that.
Thank you.
We're going to have a whole new group of MPPs, and you could be
indeed.
one of them. How would you respond to this?
Well, the theme when I've been talking at doors and on the phones is a lack of response, and that everyone across the riding, whether that's in urban or rural, wants to be heard. I don't feel that people are going to be heard when, for example, our premier has a 32% attendance rate. I would be there every day. That's our job, that's our commitment, and if we are running for public service, that's our accountability. I also pledge to be available 24 hours to 48 hours response and transparency as to why.
Okay, good. We'll open up. We've got 3 minutes for debate. Jo-Dee, it looks like you wanted to jump in, and then Matthew.
Well, clearly I have some experience on the municipal level, so I do understand some of the workings of government and how to bring ideas forward. So I think that experience will serve me well. I also know this community really well, so and I'm used to talking with people, and I know the issues that we face. So I believe that I would bring a lot of that experience as well, just knowing different people in the community and being able to bring your needs and questions and so on forward. Also, the NDP has a really great opposition team. We've been in the opposition for the last 4 years, and I don't know if anybody's watched Question Period, but they have mounted quite a good opposition, I think, and ask really great questions and try to hold the government to account, which is really hard to do when they're a majority.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Matthew, you wanted to jump in on this.
Yes, it's a great question. So, as I alluded to in the beginning of my remarks, I have worked in the House of Commons in the Legislative Assembly of Ontario. So, as I mentioned, I'd be ready on day one. And I would also, I've been committed to it. Those who've attended other debates have committed to being approachable and accessible. So, my phone number is 519-604-8078. Make sure you get that, Gwen. I'm going to say it again. 519-604-8078. Please text me. These days, the inbox is pretty full. But I do my best to return all the phone calls that are returned to me, and I'll be approachable and accessible as an MPP.
Good. Yeah, Laura, if elected, what experience are you bringing?
Yeah, so I would bring an environmental lens to all the decisions that are made, because I think that's the overarching and most important aspect of our lives, basically, is making sure that our environment is safe, clean. Thanks.
Okay. Sandy?
Honesty, respectability, and belief that your people that are running for you are going to do what you say they're going to do. Doug Ford continues to lie the last 2 years and tell people he's going to do one thing and does another. We believe in supremacy under God, so we believe to tell the truth. We believe people are sick and tired of lies, and we want to tell the truth.
Okay. And Robby, we'll wrap it up with you.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't bring anything because I'm not going to be there, and I know that, and I'll admit it. But if I was there, I would bring the knowledge of what's happening today in Ontario and around the world with this COVID nonsense, and I wouldn't be afraid to speak my mind. Like right now, I'd like to speak my mind about vaccines, and if you don't get a vaccine, you don't have a job. And if you're a health practitioner, they wonder why there's a shortage of healthcare workers. Is because they're getting fired because they won't take a vax for taking a personal medical decision. What happened to my body, my choice? On November 21st, Doug Ford said he would refuse to make vaccines mandatory, and then a couple of months later, he flip-flopped on that. Okay. That's not a leader. That's a dictator.
Thank you, Robby. Next question, and we'll direct this to Ashley, with Sandy getting a minute rebuttal. This is about municipal support. How are you intending to support municipalities with localized solutions to address the need for housing affordability? Is there an affordability plan that the Liberals have working with municipalities?
There is. So the Ontario Liberal Party would provide up to $100 million to support housing first initiatives with municipalities. As I mentioned before, municipalities know where the best growth is and where to succeed. In addition to that, we know that communities, in order to support affordable housing, we're going to need to build on infrastructure like transit and parks and arenas, and we have capital set aside for that.
Okay. Sandy, you've got 1 minute to respond.
Well, absolutely. We would work with municipalities. They know what they need. They know what the problems are, and we would work together with them to fix those problems.
Okay. We'll open it up. Robby, I know you wanted to say something.
Yeah, well, talking about municipal support, there's no difference between provincial support, municipal support. There's only one taxpayer, folks, and you're looking at him every time you look in the mirror. So when you hear these people say, oh, well, we're going to invest here, we're going to rebate that, we're going to, make, it's all coming out of your pocket. So it's not as if the money from the provincial government is free to the money that they're going to give to the municipal government. No, it all comes out of our pockets. Wake up.
Okay. Then Jo-Dee, how would you handle this one?
Yeah, I would like to differ from Robby a little bit. I don't think support for municipalities just means money or pouring money into, one pocket to the other. Support is actually allowing municipalities to do the work they need to do. And so the NDP would be very happy to repeal Bill 109, as well as restrict the use of MZOs, so just get rid of them. Okay. So that's the way we keep democracy in our municipalities.
Okay. Laura?
Yeah, the province should use its revenue to support municipalities and provincially fund 50% of shelter and community housing costs, while allowing municipalities to have the control over it, and then also create a fund for a climate adaptation fund for when these storms that are happening more often are start to affect our infrastructure and our buildings.
Okay, and Bob, we'll let you wrap it up here.
Well, again, I'm a big free market person, so I depend on private industry to be the engine of this province. I don't think the governments need to be putting money into these ventures when they're not profitable. They're profitable for private business, and private business should be looked upon to solve our problems.
Okay.
It doesn't always have to be the government that needs to solve our problems.
Okay, good, thank you. This question is directed to Matthew and Jo-Dee. What would the provincial government do, your provincial government do, to assist the city with the old Cooper site, which has been a sore point for years? We saw cooperation with all three levels of government during COVID, but what about projects like the land that could be redeveloped for so many things? I'd like to hear your thoughts about redeveloping the land. Matthew?
Sure, it's a great question. And as I alluded to before, re-elected PC government committed in budget 2022. We would work with housing. It would be every 4 years of a 4-year mandate. We would work with the housing supply action strategy, so that could be potentially used to the Cooper. Obviously, it depends on what Stratford Council puts forward to both levels of provincial and federal government. And if I was elected on June 2nd, I would work with Stratford Council to support that project and any potential applications they may make to any level of government.
Okay. Jo-Dee?
Yes, as we all know, those of us from Stratford, the Cooper site has been an ongoing issue for a long time, and it's a huge project. We did put together a plan, actually it was before my term on council, that would develop that property. And we went to the provincial and federal governments to ask for money. The province promised $10 million, and the federal government was planning to match it. When the Ford government came into power, that promise fell off the table, or it was not fulfilled. We did not receive our $20 million to get that project going. So we are still waiting. That was at least 3 years ago, and so definitely that would be something that I would be very passionate about bringing to the provincial government and make sure that we do get some support. There is affordable housing as well as a community hub planned for that area.
Yeah.
So we would definitely work with the city of Stratford to make sure that that site gets developed.
Okay. Time's up on this one. We've got another question here, and I'm just looking at the time, so we've got less than an hour left. We'll pose this question for Laura. Considering the local labor shortage, what tools or strategies would your party have in mind to support employers in Perth-Wellington? Laura?
So as I said, we have to make sure that we have affordable housing so people can live here, and in order to bring workers. Also, the Green Plan is to support transportation, interregional transportation, so that people who are living in other communities can take a bus here and not be so reliant on their car. And that way we can make sure that we have people from other communities that can make it in. And yeah, just make it affordable to live here. So that's why our plan is affordable housing.
Okay. Anybody else want to respond about this? Yep.
Yeah, very
And then
important
Ashley.
question. So our government brought in the Ontario Jobs Training Tax Credit. So this provides up to $2,000 in relief for 50% of a person's training. That could be any training at all. It could be a micro-credential at a Canadian institution, and it's fully refundable. So even if this person doesn't owe any income tax, they'll still get the refund for that. So that was a great initiative we brought forward. And we're also investing $114 million in our skilled trade strategy if re-elected. And so that will encourage people to get into skilled trades and meet the demand that is in that sector.
And Ashley.
Thank you. Similar to my colleague, we'd obviously be looking at the community, affordable housing, transit, things of that nature, but we also need to look at the worker. So we would be providing sick days, looking at full benefit packages, including vision, dental, mental health, etc. And in addition to those sick days, reinstating the ban on doctor's notes. We've seen during the pandemic, obviously workers are significantly impacted by a loss of a wage and having to wait for a doctor to fill a note.
Yeah, okay. Anybody else? Yep, Jo-Dee.
Yeah, we would definitely want to work with manufacturers. We're looking at creating a labor force strategy, so sitting down with our partners and working on a plan. We know that this area has a really low unemployment rate, and it's a combination of housing, manufacturing. There's a lot of moving parts, so we would definitely want to work with industry to create a solution. The other thing is we have a Green New Deal, which is our environmental plan, and it has a very large retrofit component. So we would be looking at creating 100,000 green jobs and training people in that sector, so that we could kill two birds with one stone, so to speak, provide jobs, and also work on our greenhouse gas emissions reduction as well.
Okay. And Robby?
Yeah. Isn't it interesting that the Liberals want to create 100,000 new jobs, I'm just quoting her right now, when we have a labor shortage? Okay? Now, I'd say a main part of the labor shortage is the school system that we have. It's a government monopoly, and it's not turning out qualified people for the jobs of the future. And we have to, this is an education system that was spawned in the 1850s in Germany, and we're still using the same techniques instead of changing the education system to reflect that we're living in the modern age with hyper cable and the internet and social media, everything else. They're not using that in the education system. Doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
So,
Time's in. Everybody in on that one? Okay. I knew this one would come up. Doug asked question about our freedoms, the convoys and freedoms. The freedoms of citizens and businesses in our locations, especially in Ottawa, were significantly constrained by several days' loud noises, 24 hours per day of truck air horns, preventing people from sleeping. How is this democratic, and how do you feel about affecting our freedoms? This is directed to Bob first.
I'm not really sure what the question was.
The question was about our democratic freedoms, and are you in
freedoms?
support of what took place?
Well, I was proudly in Ottawa supporting the truckers. Everything that you heard from the mainstream media was a complete fabricated lie. I can tell you that the streets probably were cleaner in Ottawa than they had been for years. I can tell you that the homeless people, were you there? No answer. I was there. I witnessed it firsthand. So, the homeless people were being fed by the truckers. Right? Nobody says that. So, in terms of our democracy, well, I can tell you our democracy, in terms of an election, is rigged with taxpayer subsidy per votes, where the Conservatives started this election off with $5.9 million of your taxpayers' dollars.
Okay. We just want to get Sandy in on this one.
I just want to say freedom means we have the right of freedom of speech. We have the right to protest. My father and my uncle both fought in the Second World War and the Japanese War. He became a prisoner of war in the Japanese War. He did that for freedom, so that we have the right to speak our freedom of speech, no matter where it is. We have that right.
Okay. Laura?
We do have the right, but we don't have the right to disturb other people for 24 hours of honking horns and trashing the place and disgracing the statues and so on. We have the right to protest, but not to infringe on other people's rights, right? That's how it works.
Okay. Robby?
I'd just like to say that the Freedom Convoy, although it's been characterized as illegal, it was absolutely legal. The horn honking for 24 hours, that was the first 2 days. After that, they asked them only to do it not before after 8 o'clock, and the truckers complied. There was no streets that were blocked. Crime was down 90% in Ottawa. There were bouncy castles. No, that's not true. There was, okay, all these mandates and laws are against the Canadian Constitution, the Canadian Bill of Rights, the international law, the Nuremberg Code, provincial laws, international treaties, UN Declaration of Human Rights, the Ontario Health Privacy Act, the Canadian Human Rights Code, the Ontario Human Rights Code, and the Hippocratic Oath, not to mention Canadian criminal case law and the Employment Standards Act and the Workplace Health and Safety Act. This is Canada. And we've broken all these laws, and it doesn't say in the Constitution anywhere that if you get some kind of a pandemic, our constitutional rights are out the window.
Okay. Anybody else? We got 1 minute left in this. Jo-Dee?
Yeah, we do have the right to protest, but there are also laws that govern the way we live together as a community. So if we want to be community-minded and not individualistic, then we're going to live in a way that is going to follow the laws. So there are noise bylaws, there are anti-idling bylaws, there are many bylaws that were broken, and people were afraid to go out. I have friends that live in Ottawa, and they were scared to go outside just because they were intimidated. There were people yelling at them for wearing masks.
Okay.
And
Ashley,
so.
we'll let you wrap it up then.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to bring it back to the topic that it was a provincial issue as well, and unfortunately our provincial government did not take Ottawa seriously. We need to address working with our municipalities, and unfortunately our federal government had to intervene due to a lack of response from our provincial government.
Okay, thank you. We'll stick with you on this one. This is from Diane. It's about, and we'll have a few questions about senior care and long-term care. Ashley, we'll start with you on this. What will your government do to keep our seniors safe and properly cared for? And you've got a background anyways with healthcare. Families couldn't even see some relatives except from behind glass. How would your government, just in case we have to go through another crisis again?
No, for sure. And I actually was one of those family members. My grandfather entered long-term care during the pandemic. Our priorities would be focusing on reinstating what was cut in home care and long-term care. And what we would do is we would have a home care guarantee, so increasing services for those that are in the community, ensuring that 400,000 seniors will be getting the care that they can at home. For those in long-term care who do require services, we would reinstate the inspections. We know under the Ford government that they were stopped in 2020, and we would be looking towards a non-for-profit long-term care, smaller hubs to really support our seniors.
Okay. Matthew.
Thank you, Eddie. It's a very important question. Our government is committed to, and this is legislation, so it is law, our government is committed to providing 4 hours of direct care by 2025 for our individuals in long-term care, and we're committing $4.9 billion to meet that goal. And we're also building across Perth-Wellington 943 new or upgraded long-term care beds. And under previous government, we built 0. And so we're moving forward with that. People Care is a great example locally, 160 beds. Hillside Manor, which the community did a great job in 2017-18, keeping those beds local, and they're going to be building and upgrading those beds as well.
Okay, we'll come back to that in just a few minutes because somebody does have a People Care, but Laura, you wanted to interject, and then Jo-Dee.
Yeah, it's a great idea building more beds, but we also have to pay the personal support workers more money to make sure that they're attracted to these jobs, because there's no sense in having extra beds without the people. And then let's expand some options to age in place, make it easier for seniors to live together, example, co-housing and co-living developments, and then increase support for community centers and neighborhood coalitions, which encourage connections and reduce isolation.
Jo-Dee, and then Robby.
So the NDP would work to make all long-term care public and not for profit. Because we saw through the pandemic that those public and not-for-profit facilities did much better. The residents in them did much better. They were better cared for, and we need to get profit out of our seniors' care. So that's the most important thing.
Okay, Robby Smink.
Okay, well, one of the best things we can do to keep our seniors safe is to stop them wearing these ridiculous face diapers, which do more harm than good, because it makes you breathe in your exhale. It makes you, the government's spending billions of dollars fighting CO2, right? And when you're breathing in your exhale, you inhale 7 times more CO2 than you would without a mask. So does that make any sense? It also restricts your oxygen intake by 25%. But the thing I wanted to say about seniors is the thing we have to do to keep them safe and healthy is to stop isolating them in solitary confinement and letting them have hugs from their friends. You know, solitary confinement's one of the harshest penalties ever devised by man, and yet we're doing that to our seniors to try to keep them, quote, safe. I mean, we're losing our humanity.
Okay. We got 30 seconds left. Anybody else? Nope. Then we'll go on to the next question then, which is about sticking with senior care, and I'll try to combine the two questions together. Doug, and then we'll direct this to Matthew first. Doug Ford canceled home care. Are there any of the parties planning to bring back home care without limits and cost to the seniors? And the part two of this was about People Care in Stratford that was closed about 7 years ago due to a water pipe rupture. 60 long-term care beds were lost. Where did that money go over the past 7 years? That building has been sold. Matthew, I don't know if you know too much about the People Care building itself.
Sure. So the 60 beds, the licenses, including the 160. So 100 are new. 100 of the beds are new to the area, and 60 are the current what People Care had previously, and when the facility was unfortunately flooded. And then to the question about home care, our government is committed to spending $1 billion over 3 years to improve home care. We also introduced the Seniors Home Safety Tax Credit, which helps seniors stay longer in their home. As we all know, it benefits seniors to stay in their homes longer, and so we're helping seniors do that.
Okay.
Where did the $12 million go that would be paid to People Care over the last 7 years that the ministry distributed elsewhere? And I don't believe it went to the Stratford Hospital.
With all due respect, sir,
Yep.
written questions only,
Yep.
and that goes for everyone.
I wrote that
Yep.
question twice, sir.
Okay, well,
Jo-Dee, did you want to respond to that?
The people
Yeah, well,
spent their money that went for People Care.
I know.
Where has that money gone in the last?
I don't.
Actually, Travis, hang on. I think Matthew just wants to respond to that.
Okay.
I was currently not the MPP, so I cannot comment on where that money has gone. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Jo-Dee, we'll let you continue.
I also can't comment on where that money's gone, although I would think that the person in the same party might be able to give a little bit of a better answer than that. But one of the most important things that we need to do is overhaul the home-term care. So we need seniors to be able to stay at home longer, and we need to be able to support them. PSWs, people that would go into people's homes and help with home care, we definitely need to make sure that they're being paid properly. We would revoke Ford's low-wage policy, Bill 124, to make sure that healthcare workers get paid what they deserve.
Okay. Robby?
Did I hear that right, that that Ford got rid of home care?
Apparently they did.
I heard that right. Okay, well, you know, this is another case of the government causing more problems than they solve. They, you know, keeping people in their homes is one of the best and least expensive ways to keep them healthy. And by withdrawing their support for that, they just want to obviously herd everybody into their government facilities and basically keep people out of their homes instead of, and you know, to keep somebody in a hospital per day, $500. In a senior's home, it's about $350. If they were living in their own home, they'd probably get away with $75 worth of labor of people that are helping them to stay in their home.
Let's talk to Ashley, who's seen a little bit of it in the past too, from the Liberals.
Thank you. So he didn't end home care, but he did cut it. So we know that seniors who initially at the beginning of the pandemic qualified for services lost services during the pandemic. There wouldn't be a focus on beds. It'd be focusing on home care and focusing on how we can be preventative and not reactive. Similar to my colleagues around the table, paying staff is the way to start. And we're going to end with the wage disparity between home care PSWs and nurses and hospital nurses and PSWs and long-term care nurses and PSWs. We want to make it a career of choice. And for those that are caregivers at home, we would also be implementing for the unpaid caregiver, a tax credit that would be paid out more than just annually to support them at home living with their loved ones.
Good. Bob or Sandy?
Seniors and how much we care about them and all these things. And like he said, we locked them up for 2 years and we told them that they could only get out if they took 2 jabs or 3 jabs or 4 jabs. And they never listen to any other doctors besides the WHO doctors. They never listen to the doctors on the other side. I listen to kids every day. They always have to have both sides of the story, and this government did not allow both sides of the story with doctors that told us true things. We would have saved thousands of seniors' lives.
And
Thousands.
Bob, we'll wrap it up with you.
Well, I'm in agreement with Robby. I think our seniors should be still in their homes. I think sending them to publicly funded LTC homes is not the right way to go. I think it's a lot cheaper way of supporting them with PSWs. But again, cost of living is going up, and wages need to reflect that.
Okay, good. We're going to stick with healthcare, and I'm sorry. Yeah.
Just to remember that we should expand the, co-housing and co-living, because it can be lonely for a senior in their house. So we have to make long-term care homes desirable to go to as well. So we don't want to imprison people in their own homes as well. Okay. We want to make sure they have a community.
Okay, good. Thanks, Laura. And don't go too far, because this one's directed to you. How about the Greens? What would you be doing to get laid off healthcare professionals back to work, regardless of any personal medical decisions?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Is it like 1 or 2% of the people have been laid off? Because I'm not really familiar with how many people had lost their jobs because they didn't take the jab. As far as our platform, we want to get more nurses. We want to get more students in nursing programs, and then we want to make sure that people who have their certification, like from overseas, are accredited and allowed to practice over here. So I guess I didn't answer the question. I just didn't know how many of these nurses have been laid off.
Right,
so.
okay. Well, Matthew, do you have any stats, or have you heard anything at all?
So it's a great question, and obviously even before the pandemic we needed more nurses in our hospitals, in our long-term care and home care, and also PSWs, and so our government is committing to investing and spending $342 million over 5 years to recruit 13,000 healthcare workers to our system. So that includes 5,000 nurses and 8,000 PSWs.
Okay. Jo-Dee.
Yeah, with revoking Bill 124 is the way to go, I think, because the reason that that we have a shortage of nurses and PSWs is that people who were working in those sectors, they got burned out. They're not being paid enough. They're not being respected. So they are moving to other fields. People are not going into training to become nurses and PSWs. Because they're frustrated. Met a lady on the door here a couple days ago in Stratford, and she's been working in nursing for 18 years, and she really hasn't had an increase. She's in her early 50s, and she's going to retire. So she said she's just one of many, many nurses who are still planning to leave the sector, and we're going to be in even more trouble if we don't fix Bill 124 and the wages.
Okay, we got a minute or so left. Anybody else want to jump in? Robby, and then Ashley.
Yeah, well, I was just really impressed here how Matthew just spent another $343 million. But I'm not a fan of government spending, but in this case, the government should rehire everybody in the healthcare system that lost their job because they didn't get jabbed, and they should be rehired with back pay, with compensation. And nobody should lose their job for a personal medical decision, especially for taking a poisonous vaccine, which has been proven not to work. It doesn't prevent getting COVID. It doesn't prevent spreading COVID. It just doesn't work.
Okay.
It's a hoax.
Okay, and Ashley, you got the last word on this.
Perfect, thank you so much. And just for statistical data, it is 1 to 3% of employees across the hospital sector. It does not include just nurses. It includes the housekeeping, the maintenance, and all other departments. It's not a provincial jurisdiction due to the fact that the mandates were put in place by workplace sites. Therefore, it is a requirement, and we would work with our work sites and our hospitals and our public sector to address these issues. I'd also like to address as well that if we're looking at shortages, yes, there was shortages during the pandemic and before the pandemic, and we know that programs that were put in place by the current government, we're not seeing the results that were promised.
Good, okay, thank you. We got one last question before we do closing statements from everybody, and this one is directed to Sandy. Please describe your plan for public transportation, not only around this area, but for the entire
Public
province.
transportation. Well, I believe in public transportation. Obviously, I think it's a good way to move people from place to place and keep pollution down, whether you call it carbon or not. But I think believing in transportation is a good thing. There's something that I would like to bring forth, which she mentioned I was talking about the last few times, is having an entrepreneurship, to have someone to start a business that moves people from place to place according to the need, vans or minibuses to move them to different places, because people are I'm spending close to $600 a month for gas to get to my job. So we need to have other options for people to get to their job.
Okay. Matthew.
Yes, it's a great question. And so our government has committed $1.5 million to extend the PC bus, the pilot project, moving forward, continue that, because we know ridership was down obviously during COVID, so we'll continue that project. The PC government's also the government that brought the GO train to Stratford and St. Mary's, and it was great to see in budget 2022 we committed to investing in track improvements moving forward, and to continue the pilot project and collect the data that's required.
Good. Yeah, and Laura.
Yeah, that's great that we have the GO train. Let's increase transit connections outside of the Greater Toronto Hamilton area and expand all-day two-way GO service. Let's cancel the unnecessary Highway 413, Holland Marsh, and 417 widening, a climate disaster. And then we can create a dedicated truck lane on the 407 to reduce congestion. There is a solution. And then, of course, restore like 50% provincial cost share for transit operations, and to reduce fares, and then, of course, support interregional transportation between our communities so that we're not so dependent on the car. And don't forget about connecting neighborhoods with people-powered transportation, my favorite. Creating a fund for municipalities to build bike lanes while preserving safety and curb access for seniors.
Okay. Jo-Dee?
Right, the NDP has a lot of those things in its platform as well, the same as the Greens. One of the things that is really important is that to have a provincial approach to it. So the PC Connect bus service that we have in this area was sort of cobbled together with little bits of funding from various municipalities. We had to work quite hard to get the cooperation going, and then our funding was actually supposed to be stopped. So it's sort of uncertain how the PC Connect is going to move forward without stable funding. So we would look at creating an overarching strategy, a provincial strategy that would include rural areas. So basically everything probably under the GO system, have everything connected. We need to replace what basically has fallen away. We had Greyhound, which was a privatization. So we need to bring back more public transportation and get our rural communities connected with larger centers.
Okay. And Ashley, wrap it up for us.
Very similar to Green and NDP, we also have a plan to expand our transit and connectivity across the province, not just focusing on the GTA. And similar, we would also be increasing accessibility, because we know that not everyone works at the same time. Not everyone goes to school at the same time.
Okay. Anybody else want to jump in on this one, or we're going to start with closing comments? Okay. Sandy, we're going to start with you, and you've got 2 minutes to give your final thoughts. Sandy MacGregor.
This is the reason that I joined the Ontario Party, because they acknowledge the supremacy of God and the rule of law. We believe that all human beings have an inalienable right to life, liberty, and private property. We believe that the right to life is the most important human right from which all other rights are derived. We therefore affirm the right of the individual to ensure his or her safety and self-preservation, and of their loved ones, from any entity that would threaten their physical harm. This current government constantly exposes their lack of truthfulness. Specifically to Ford, in the summer of 2021, he explicitly promised his government would not require proof of vaccination, and as it would violate individual citizens' medical privacy. He lied. Ford further claimed that his government would not allow citizens to be fired or face punishment for exercising their freedom of conscience when it came to the vaccine. He lied. We've seen the harm that this government can inflict. Giving them more power to inflict more harm with digital ID makes no sense. If you truly believe that you are held accountable by a higher power, then in accordance, everything you do will be the result of those beliefs. If one truly believes in the supremacy of God, all these other things that we have talked about tonight will be added and acted upon in accordance with that higher power, putting the truth and honesty to the forefront of their decisions as politicians. As I've said, my father served in the World War II, the Korean conflict, and my Uncle Mac spent time in a Japanese prisoner of war camp, all while his daughter was being born in Toronto. Choose the Ontario Party, the choice for the standard of faith, family, and freedom, and our true north, strong and free. On June 2nd, vote for Sandy MacGregor and the Ontario Party. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sandy. Robby Smink from the Freedom Party. You've got 2 minutes.
Thank you. I would once again invite you to visit the Freedom Party website and check out our platform of truth, rights, justice, and freedom, as opposed to what the 4 major parties are offering, which is lies, compliance, injustice, and more tyranny. You know, it's too bad we didn't get to talk about things that really matter, like the windmills that are, you know, cost $9.5 million each to install. They save you $40,000 a year, so there's a 200-year payback. That's without any maintenance. It's too bad that we didn't get to talk tonight about, you know, what this virus isn't going away. This was only the end of the first round. It's coming back. They've got $6.9 billion pegged for the next round. And it's too bad that we didn't talk tonight about, you know, that the real virus is the fear that the government installed with 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week propaganda. That the real virus is the politicians that are promoting this hoax. That the real virus is the media who are pandering to the lies. That the real virus that we are confronting are the public health experts who are lying to us. That the real virus is the lockdowns that were put millions of people out of work, and the real virus is the PCR tests and the face diapers and the social distancing and the fear of germs that's been instilled in our children, and the vaccines and the vaccine passports. We got to talk about this, folks. That's what this election should be about, not about let's have the government provide another program so that it can cause more problems. If you, unless you vote for the winning candidate, your vote's kind of wasted anyway. So what you should do is vote for the people that you agree with. And if you want to have a protest vote, that's the way you do it. And Doug Ford does not deserve another term, although he's going to get it because he's up by 9 points. And that's why he doesn't have his candidates in the debates anymore, because he wants to make sure that nobody makes a mistake.
Thank you, Robby. Matthew Ray from the PC Party of Ontario. You've got 2 minutes.
Thank you, Eddie, and it's great to be here as the PC Canada debate. It's our 5th debate, I believe. I might be losing track of time. Thank you again to the Stratford District Chamber of Commerce, to Eddie Matthews, the General Manager, and to all the board members and volunteers here this evening. I'm running to be your voice at Queen's Park and to get things done for Perth-Wellington. Having worked at Queen's Park before, I understand the day-to-day life of an MPP. I'll be ready on day one to advocate for our communities in Toronto. A re-elected progressive conservative government will rebuild Ontario's economy. We're building 943 new and upgraded long-term care beds in Perth-Wellington alone. We're building 225 new childcare spaces in Perth-Wellington alone. We're investing $4 billion in rural broadband expansion to increase rural broadband across the province by 2025, so everyone has access to that. $20 million has been spent since 2018 in Perth-Wellington. We're working for workers. We're investing $114 million in the skilled trade strategy. We're investing $342 million to recruit 13,000 workers to Ontario's healthcare system. We're building highways and key infrastructure, including the $3 million reconstruction of Huron Street in Stratford. We're keeping costs down. We introduced the child care tax credit, seniors home safety tax credit. We're cutting the gas and fuels tax credit, and we'll introduce a seniors care at home tax credit for medical costs. And yes, we are investing in a plan to stay open. We are building more hospital beds, we're investing $1 billion additional investments in home care, and we're expanding community commitment program for nurses in rural Ontario. In closing, a re-elected progressive conservative government will continue to get things done for Perth-Wellington. My name is Matthew Ray, and on June 2nd, I ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. And Laura Busutti from the Green Party, you've got 2 minutes.
Billions of dollars will be spent rebooting the economy over the next decade. We can either chase old ideas, old industries, and old ways of doing things, or we can choose a new way forward with new solutions that reflect the urgency of the climate emergency, the housing affordability crisis, and the mental health crisis. We're asking the wealthiest Ontarians to pay their fair share with a tax on assets over $10 million. We're redirecting $23 billion currently used by the Ford government to subsidize electricity that benefits high-income households. We want to keep in place programs to help low-income, rural, and remote communities with their energy costs. We want to implement speculation taxes to address the skyrocketing cost of homes to people that buy multiple homes. We want to cancel the $10 billion Highway 413 climate disaster, and we want to re-implement license sticker fees. Our plan makes fiscally responsible investments that will result in a better range of public services and chart a path towards a balanced budget. Thank you all.
Thanks, Laura. Jo-Dee Burbach from the NDP, you've got 2 minutes.
Thank you again to the Chamber and to Eddie for hosting this event. So tonight, we've identified some things that Ontarians want this province to invest in: affordable housing, healthcare, education, protecting the environment. Allowing Ford to continue to push urban sprawl and build costly highways, continuing to make cuts to education and healthcare, all while completely ignoring the climate crisis, will seriously hurt all Ontarians. We will cancel the Highway 413 and Bradford bypass. This will save $10 billion over the next 10 years. The NDP has an excellent plan to help fix what's broken in this province, and together we can get it done. Let's make the lives of everyday families better by providing universal publicly funded mental health care, paid for with OHIP card and not your credit card. Let's invest in affordable housing to ensure that every family has a comfortable place to call home. Let's ensure that our elders have good quality long-term care while getting the profit out of seniors' care and health care. As I'm sure many of you are aware, Perth-Wellington is an open seat in this election, so we have an excellent opportunity to make a real change in this riding. It's very important to send someone to Queen's Park who understands our local challenges and is willing to fight to make changes on behalf of Perth-Wellington. My name is Jo-Dee Burbach, and I'm ready to bring a strong voice to Queen's Park. With your support, I look forward to becoming your next MPP.
Thank you, Jo-Dee. Bob Hoskins from the New Blue, you've got 2 minutes. Bob?
When I introduced myself tonight, I didn't really state my profession or where I lived. So if I'm from Harriston. I live with my wife and 2 beautiful daughters. But my profession, I'm a high school math teacher. I have a degree in statistics from the University of Guelph, and that's my passion. I love math. And I had a feeling that I should start collecting the data that the Ontario government was putting out regarding COVID. And I think the public needs to hear what I found. And I can tell you, if I know this stuff, collecting this off the Ontario's own government website, other people know it as well. What I can tell you is this. I started collecting data on February 26th of 2021. Why? Because that's when the vaccine was rolled out. Essentially, it came out in December, but it was rolled out in February. I can tell you that the year between in 2020 and 2021, where the vaccine was available, when before it was not available, there's a substantial amount of deaths that happen in people under 70. 550% increase in the number of deaths in people aged 20 or younger. 366% increase in people in the age of 20. 390% increase in the people aged 30 to 39. 200 or almost 300% for 40-year-olds. 200% for 50-year-olds. 154% for 60-year-olds, And there were more actual 70-year-olds die when the vaccine was available than when the vaccine was not available the previous year. You can fact check me all you want. It's from their own source data. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. And finally, Ashley Fox from the Liberals. You've got 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Eddie, for moderating. I know that's a difficult job. Stratford Chamber and Rogers, thank you, as well as our sponsors. I know that without you, this event could not be possible. Thank you for attending in person or online. It makes a difference when our community is involved and informed at election time. I want so much more for my government, and I hope you do too. Again, that desire had fueled me to make a decision to run and make things better, and I want everyone in Perth-Wellington to feel like they have a voice. I want you to have an MPP who will listen and respond to the people that they represent. I can assure you, when I give out my phone number, I will be calling you. There are so many issues that are important to me in this provincial election, including healthcare, education, our agricultural community, and our pandemic response. You've heard a few of them in the debate tonight, and Ontario can be the place to grow, but only if we make the right choices. It's your choice. We can send more career, unresponsive politicians to Queen's Park, participate in closed-door consultations, and lose our voice. Or we can send a fresh voice, a nurse who has dedicated their entire career to working and advocating for the vulnerable. I already make a difference for my patients, and I'm ready to make a difference for you. I was the first candidate in Perth-Wellington to take the Universal Basic Income Pledge, and I will continue to advocate for a dementia strategy at Queen's Park. I humbly ask for your support on June 2nd. Vote for Ashley Fox, Ontario Liberal candidate for Perth-Wellington.
Thanks, Ashley. And thank you to all the candidates for their participation this evening. This is an important election, so I'm glad you got to have a chance to listen to all the candidates and their views. They're going to be sticking around. I'm sorry we couldn't get to all the questions. We had so many, but they will be sticking around if you would like to direct any question to them. Thanks again to War Insurance, Vancia Financial, Farming Company, the Huron Perth Association of Realtors, and the Stratford and Area Builders Association, plus 401 Stream and Rogers. Thank you to everybody for being here. This is an important election coming up. Advance polls are currently open. Election day is June 2nd. Thank you for joining us tonight. Have a pleasant evening.